Welcome to Books on Air, the podcast you really don't want to miss. I'm Suzanne Harris, and today you're going to get a sneak peek behind the scenes at what it's like to be an author. You're going to hear the backstory behind the book, who or what inspires the person, where their ideas came from, and, who knows, you might even get the inside scoop on a new project. If you want to know more about them and their work, we'll tell you where to find them on social media. Joining me today is an extraordinary man. His name is Larry Levine, and he's here to talk about his food memoir, Cooking for a Beautiful Woman, The Tastes and Tales of a Wonderful Life. Larry has done so many things. He's the founder and editor and publisher of the online food magazine Table Talk at Larry's. He's authored hundreds of features about food and restaurants, and he estimates that he's cooked 30,000 meals. I don't even know if I've cooked 5, during a lifetime of passion for all things food-related. Not only that, he's one of California's premier political consultants. He's directed more than 200 campaigns for candidates and ballot measures in 7 states with a winning record. Before entering the world of politics, he was a news reporter and an editor for 15 years. And I have to say that this wonderful book, Cooking for a Beautiful Woman, was a finalist for the Nancy Pearl Award, Best Memoir of 2020. Larry Levine, welcome to Books on Air. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to have you.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for making yourself and the time available. We're going to talk, I presume, about a couple of my favorite subjects. As you're aware, food is one of the great passions of my life. And this book came about because of 2 things. One, it's my passion for food, and 2, it's because I have been so fortunate over the decades to have met an incredible number of very strong, independent, intelligent women who have added to the sum of my life. And in all of those relationships, food was the glue that binded, or bound, I guess is the word. Whether it was cooking together at home or eating together in restaurants, and we got to know each other over dinner plates.
Where did this romance with food get started, Larry?
That's an interesting question. My mother was not a particularly good cook. She made a few things really well and a lot of things not so well. And I guess it was the environment in the house that gave me the freedom to express the fact that, no, Mom, I really don't like this liver. My mom made liver to the consistency of shoe leather because that's how my father liked it. And it gave me the freedom to say, Mom, I really don't like this liver. On the night you're going to make liver, why don't you skip me and I'll make my own dinner.
I'm right there with you, by the way.
And I did. I think I was about 14 years old the first time. I went around a corner and I bought, believe it or not, 14 years old, I bought a piece of calf's heart, which is another thing my mom made frequently, and I really loved. I came home and I made myself some calf's heart and mashed potatoes and peas, and I loved it. And I get so much joy and so much relaxation from food, whether it's shopping for it or cooking it or eating it. To me, a supermarket is like a playground. I go there and I have all of these great relationships and conversations. There's a checkout clerk at the market where I was this morning, as a matter of fact. We sing duets together while she's checking out. She's musically inclined, and I love music, opera, Broadway shows, whatever. And one day I came up and I was humming the Mexican ballad, Solamente una vez. You belong to my heart now and forever, was the English language. And she said, "Oh, is that Solamente?" And I said, "Yeah." We stood there. She sang the Spanish language lyric, and I sang the English language together, while everybody behind me in the checkout line stood there and watched and then applauded. So, so it's I don't know where genetically this came from. This passion for food, this ability to cook, to invent new recipes. I mean, the book has 102 easy recipes for the home cook. Well, one of them is not so easy. My mom's old recipe for gefilte fish is a real teaser. But the rest of them, they're really easy. And I think since the book was published, I've probably invented another 40 or 50 recipes. It's just, I keep going. I just keep going. When the COVID hit in March of 2020, Jennifer and I decided we're going to hunker down. I was fortunate enough to be able to work from home. She is severely asthmatic and had absolutely no interest in going out of the house. I cooked 340 consecutive dinners for us. 340 consecutive nights.
Wow.
And the string was only broken because I developed a stomach flu or stomach bug, whatever you want to call it, one day, and just didn't feel like getting out of bed, so I didn't cook that day. Otherwise, it would still be going. It's what I do. I cook. I really, at the end of the day, I pour myself a glass of wine, put some nice music on, we'll go into the kitchen and cook dinner. It used to be I would shop on the way home for dinner. Since the virus, I do my once a week, 1 hour senior citizen hour in the market, load up for the week, and then every day we say, what should we have for dinner tomorrow night? And I take that out of the freezer and just start planning my schedule for the next day, including when do I have to go into the kitchen. So it's worked out. This horrible situation, we've just made the best out of it.
I can hear in your voice, you and I talked about this before we started the interview. I can hear in your voice the passion that you feel for food. And as I thought about the book, I mean, I've read the book, and the stories are amazing and wonderful. And there's always a two-story. Every book has two stories. The reader will buy a copy of the cookbook, and they'll cook some of the wonderful recipes, and they'll read the stories, and that'll make the recipes meaningful for them. But there's always a story behind the book. Now, how in the world did you decide, A, which women to include in the book, and B, which recipes to include to represent that woman? I can't imagine the choices you must have had.
It was a lot of fun. The decision wasn't which women to include; it's which ones I couldn't fit in, which ones had to be left out. That's why the last chapter, Mothers and Daughters and Others, the subtitle is Personal and Professional Fulfillment,
right,
is kind of a hodgepodge of references to an innumerable number of women who just somehow or another, I didn't devote a chapter to them, but I couldn't leave them out of the book completely. And the same thing with the recipes. I looked for recipes. It was, in some cases, it was easy. In chapter 9, Marna's story, dinner at some of the old famous Sunset Strip recipes was something we did regularly. Marna was the only woman in my life, other than Jennifer, who I ultimately married, who I ever considered I might spend my life with. I mean, we had just a fairy tale romance that ended because she knew I was going to want to have children someday, and she knew she never would. But in her chapter, it was easy. I included the recipes from some of the old Sunset Strip restaurants that we used to go to. My mother, her chapter, which is obviously the first one, I thought back over, of all the things she cooked, what am I still cooking? What am I still doing today? My mom's family was Romanian ancestry. Her Romanian eggplant salad was a no-brainer. That had to go in. And it went from there. The hardest one to winnow down the recipes on was Jennifer, my wife. She loves to eat. She loves to eat as much as I love to cook. She doesn't like cooking. It's a perfect match. Perfect match. But she will eat anything. I mean, anything and everything. And I had to figure out, what is it of all the things cook that best describes the food part of our life, and that was very, very tough to do. My Aunt Tilly, an incredible story, chapter 11, an indomitable spirit and incredible survival. Tilly Tudor, one of a kind. Tilly became internationally famous because of a traffic accident in the year 2000. She was 80 plus years old, living in South Florida, and went missing because a drunk driver had hit her car and knocked it over off a bridge, and she was suspended in the mangrove upside down in her Toyota for 3 days. And they were just about to give up looking for her when a young man, a boy, and his father, who were doing highway cleanup, happened to look over the railing and see her down there, see the car down there, until he stuck her foot out the window and waved at them with her foot. And that's how she was rescued.
Oh, my
gosh. What an incredible story. And Tilly was my mother's youngest sister. And it was easy to know what to put in that chapter, because we visited her in Florida often, and she always made us the same dinner for the first night. She started out with chicken livers and sweetbreads and mushrooms and onions and peas. A very selective taste palette. And then she would make a brisket of beef. And I make what I think maybe I make an extraordinary brisket of beef. I use not quite Tilly's recipe, but it's the foundation of it. So that was an easy one to pick. There's a chapter on the opera singer Maria Callas. Easy to pick.
Now, how did recipes. Wait. How did you meet somebody like, you've got chapters on Maria Callas, Judy Garland, Peggy Fleming. How did you meet those women?
Well, I didn't meet all of them. They were influences on my life. Maria Callas, I met sitting in the first row of the balcony of a theater. She was on stage. I had idolized Maria Callas I'm a huge opera fan. And it turned out she was doing one of her farewell tour concerts in LA on my birthday.
Oh.
And it was the only opportunity I had ever had to actually see her. And I grabbed tickets for Jennifer and I and my parents, and we went and saw her. And the chapter is as much an homage to opera and as it is to Maria Callas. Because while I idolized her as a singer, she isn't even my all-time favorite soprano. That would have been Morella Freni. But it was the incident of the coincidence of her being here on my birthday just set it up. And it was easy to decide to use the Greek recipes. Judy Garland, definitely the greatest entertainer I have ever seen to my taste. My mother was a professional singer before she got married. She sang with the Paul Whiteman Band. Walter Winchell used to call the Broadway columnist, called her the little girl with the big voice. She was likened to Judy Garland in her singing style and her vocal quality. I became enamored of Judy Garland's personality as well as her voice, and I would travel all over to see her. I cannot count the number of times I watched Judy Garland. And one magical night at the Sahara Hotel in Las Vegas, I happened to be in the audience, and her performance clicked that night with a truly Judy audience. And when she finished, the place erupted, and the next thing I knew, I was standing on a tabletop throwing rolls in the air, screaming my head off. And I looked around, and I wasn't the only one standing on a chair or a table. The place went crazy. It was, of all the Garland concerts I ever saw, this one probably resonated as greatly as the famous Carnegie Hall concert. So again, easy. What do? What were the favorite dishes I had during my bachelor days when I was hanging out in Vegas? I put those in here, and that was how I essentially chose the recipes, how to choose the women